Let us look at an example of cost volume profit analysis. So we have been given some information of 4 independent cases, and we have to fill in the blanks for each of these cases. So the data that we are analyzing has revenues, variable cost, fixed cost, total cost, operating income, and contribution margin percent. Now there is a correlation between a lot of these terms. So variable cost plus the fixed cost is total cost, and revenue minus the total cost is operating income. Contribution margin percent is the contribution margin divided by the revenue, and contribution margin is equal to the revenue minus the variable cost. So let us write this down for ease of computation. So we have variable cost plus the fixed cost is equal to total cost. Then revenue minus the total cost is equal to operating income. Revenue minus the variable cost is equal to contribution margin, and contribution margin divided by the revenue is equal to the contribution margin percentage. So with this understanding, let's first take a look at the case number 1. So here we have been given the variable cost. We don't have the fixed cost. We have the total cost. We don't have the revenue. We have the operating income, but not the contribution margin percentage. Now, we know that the variable cost plus fixed cost is equal to the total cost. So total cost has been given 800. Variable cost has been given 500. So 500 plus x is equal to 800. So x is equal to 800 minus 500, which is 300. Now we don't have the revenue, but we have the total cost and we have the operating income. And we know that revenue minus the total cost is equal to the operating income. So x minus 800 is equal to 1200. So x is equal to 1200 plus 800, which is 2000. Now contribution margin percentage is contribution margin divided by revenue, and contribution margin is revenue minus the variable cost. So revenue minus variable cost is 2000 minus 500, which is 1500, and the revenue is 2000. So 1500 divided by 2000 is 0.75, and 0.75 multiplied by 100, because we want this ratio in percentage. The contribution margin percentage is 75%. So here actually this is the contribution margin ratio, and we need to multiply this by 100 to get the percentage. Now let's take a look at the second case. So we have the revenue here, $2,000. We don't have the variable cost. We have the fixed cost. We don't have the total cost. We have the operating income, and we don't have the contribution margin. Now we have the revenue and the operating income, and revenue minus total cost is operating income. Total cost we don't have, so let's take this as x. So 2000 minus x is 200. So x will be equal to 2000 minus 200, which is 1800. Now we know that variable cost plus fixed cost is total cost. Now let's take variable cost as x. So x plus 300 is equal to 1800. So x is equal to 1800 minus 300, which is 1500. So the variable cost is $1,500. Now the contribution margin for this case will be equal to the revenue minus the variable cost. So 2000 minus 1500, which is 500. And the contribution margin percentage will be the contribution margin divided by the revenue multiplied by 100. So 500 divided by 2000 is 0.25, and 0.25 multiplied by 100 is 25%. Now let's take the third case. So revenue is $1,000, variable cost is $700. We don't have the fixed cost. The total cost is $1,000. We don't have the operating income, and we don't know the contribution margin percentage. Now we know that variable cost plus fixed cost is the total cost. So let's take fixed cost as x. 700 plus x is 1000. So x is 1000 minus 700, which is 300. Now operating income is revenue minus the total cost. Revenue is 1000, total cost is 1000. So the operating income is 0. Now contribution margin is revenue minus the variable cost. So 1000 minus 700, which is 300. And contribution margin percentage is contribution margin divided by revenue. So 300 divided by 1000 and multiplied by 100. So 300 divided by 1000 is 0.3, and 0.3 multiplied by 100 is 30%. Now for the fourth case, we have been given the revenue, which is 1500. We don't have the variable cost. We have the fixed cost. We don't have the total cost. We don't have the operating income, but we have the contribution margin percentage. So contribution margin percentage here is 40%, and contribution margin percentage is contribution margin divided by revenue multiplied by 100. So let me do some calculations here. So the contribution margin is unknown, that is x. Revenue is 1500 multiplied by 100 is equal to 40. So these two zeros get cancelled with these two zeros. So or x is equal to 40 multiplied by 15. 15 fours are 60. So this is $600. So the contribution margin is $600. Now contribution margin is revenue minus the variable cost. So revenue is 1500. So 1500 minus x is equal to 600. So x is equal to 1500 minus 600, which is equal to $900. So the variable cost is 900. Now variable cost plus fixed cost is the total cost. So 900 plus 300 is 1200. Operating income is revenue minus the total cost. So 1500 minus 1200, which is 300. So now we have filled in all the blanks. So this is how you can use the relationship between these terms to find out the various values. This type of analysis particularly comes in very handy when you're trying to analyze a company's numbers and you have very limited numbers. So with the relationship that you know, you can find out the remaining numbers and easily understand how the company is doing.